Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into one of the most important topics for anyone who wants to improve their life. Discipline. Not motivation, not inspiration, not feeling ready. Real, solid discipline. The kind that helps you take action even when you're tired, lazy, or not in the mood.
And honestly, discipline is one of the most misunderstood things. So many people think discipline is something only successful people are born with, like a natural talent. But that's not true at all. Discipline is built the same way you build a muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger you get. No one wakes up suddenly disciplined. They train for it.
Exactly. And I really want people to understand this. You're not lazy by nature. You're not hopeless. You're not broken. You just haven't trained your discipline muscle yet. And that's good news because it means you can change it no matter your age, background, or habits.
Right. And maybe someone listening right now feels like they've tried to be disciplined before and failed. They started a routine, got motivated for 2 days, then stopped. And they think, I guess discipline is not for me. But the truth is, they didn't fail at discipline. They just didn't learn how discipline really works. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
Let's start with the very first principle. Discipline begins with clarity. It sounds simple, but most people don't know what they truly want. They say things like, I want to be better, or I want to improve my life. But that's way too vague. Your brain can't work with vague instructions. It needs a target.
Yes, people underestimate how important clarity is. If your goal is unclear, your actions will be unclear. And unclear actions never become habits. If you want discipline, you need to know exactly what you're trying to be disciplined about. Your brain needs the GPS location, not a map with no destination.
So, the first question people should ask themselves is, what exactly do I want to be disciplined in? There's a big difference between I want to be disciplined and I want to study English for 25 minutes every evening, or I want to work out 3 times a week, or I want to stop wasting 2 hours on my phone every morning.
And this takes us to something closely connected. Don't pick 10 goals at once. That's where people ruin their discipline. They try to fix their entire life in 1 week. I will wake up early, study, exercise, read, journal, meditate, learn a new skill. And after 2 days, they're exhausted.
Exactly. The brain hates chaos. Discipline grows through focus, not overload. So choose one habit, just one. It can be tiny, but choosing one habit creates leverage. When you get consistent with one habit, it becomes easier to add another one later.
One habit is enough to start a whole wave of change, because when you succeed in one small thing, you start believing in yourself. That confidence spreads to other areas of your life. It's like planting a small seed that grows into a big tree.
Now let's talk about something that really matters. Discipline is built through systems, not motivation. This is where 90% of people fail. They wait for motivation. They wait to feel ready. But motivation is temporary, and sometimes it doesn't show up at all. Systems don't depend on feelings. They automate your actions.
I love this. A system is basically something that makes the good habit easier and more automatic. For example, if you want to work out, prepare your clothes the night before. If you want to study, schedule it at the same time every day. If you want to read, put a book next to your bed or on your desk. If you want to focus, keep your phone in another room. These systems reduce friction. They remove the need to think or make decisions.
That's exactly why systems work. They remove the should I do it, should I start now, maybe later conversations from your mind. When something is already prepared, when it's part of your environment, when it's scheduled, your brain just follows it.
And systems help with something else, reducing willpower use. People think discipline is about using willpower all day, but willpower gets tired fast. No one can rely on willpower forever. Systems save your willpower for important things.
So, here's a good rule. Make the good habit easy and the bad habit hard. That brings us to another principle. Remove temptations and options. You can't build discipline if your environment is full of things that destroy it.
Exactly. People blame themselves for lack of discipline, but sometimes it's not their fault. It's their environment. For example, if you want to focus but your phone is buzzing every minute, your environment is stronger than your willpower. If you want to eat healthy but there's junk food everywhere in your kitchen, of course you'll reach for it.
So, instead of fighting temptation, remove it. If social media distracts you, uninstall or block the apps during your work time. If you waste time in bed scrolling, keep your phone far away from your bed. If you want to eat better, don't buy unhealthy snacks. If you want to study more, keep your study tools ready on your desk. Small changes in your environment make a huge difference in discipline.
Another thing people don't understand is that discipline grows from small actions, not huge ones. If you start too big, your brain feels threatened and rejects the habit. But if you start tiny, like reading for 5 minutes or doing just 10 push-ups, your brain thinks, oh, this is easy, and it allows you to keep going.
This is called lowering the barrier. The easier something feels, the more consistent you become. And consistency is what builds discipline, not intensity.
I actually think consistency is the secret of everything. And I mean everything. You don't need perfect discipline. You just need to show up every day, even if your effort is small. People think missing one day means failure. But the truth is, missing one day is nothing. Missing 2 days becomes a problem.
Yes, because 2 days create a pattern. Discipline is about returning, not being perfect. So if someone listening misses a day, the only thing they need to do is come back the next day. No guilt, no overthinking, just return.
And when you begin to return again and again, that's when discipline becomes part of your identity. You start thinking of yourself as someone who follows through, someone who completes things, someone who has control over their actions.
Before we move on, let's summarize what we said today in one sentence. Discipline begins small, grows through systems, and becomes natural through consistency. So, last time we talked about clarity, systems, and consistency. Today, I want us to dive deeper into something that almost everyone struggles with: why discipline feels painful at the beginning. People always ask, why is it so hard to start good habits? Why is it so easy to fall back into comfort? And the answer is actually simple but powerful. Your brain is designed to protect you. It tries to avoid discomfort, effort, and anything uncertain. That means every time you try to change your life, your brain sends warning signals saying, stop, this is uncomfortable, go back to doing the easy thing. So, discipline is partly about training your brain to understand that not all discomfort is dangerous. Some discomfort actually helps you grow.
That's so true. And I think this is where most people misunderstand themselves. They think their resistance means they're weak or lazy. But resistance is just biology. The human brain loves routines, even if the routine is unhealthy. If your brain is used to scrolling your phone until 2 a.m., that becomes the safe routine. If you try to read or sleep early, your brain says, wait, this is different. This is unfamiliar. Let's go back to Netflix. It's not because you're undisciplined. It's because your brain has been trained to expect a certain pattern. And patterns are powerful. Discipline is basically the art of replacing an old pattern with a new one. And that process always begins with discomfort.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that people only feel that discomfort at the beginning. Like, imagine someone who wants to go to the gym. The first week is terrible. Everything hurts. They feel embarrassed. They feel tired.
and their brain tells them to quit. But after a few weeks, the discomfort decreases. After a few months, the gym becomes normal. And after a year, the gym becomes part of who they are. This is what I call the transition period. And most people quit during this transition. They quit right before discipline becomes easier.
That's the sad part. People quit 3 feet away from success. If only they pushed a little more, they would have broken through the resistance. And the key to surviving that transition is understanding that discomfort is not a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're growing. When something is uncomfortable, it means you're breaking old habits. And breaking old habits always feels painful at first. But the pain is temporary. The results are not.
There's another big factor too, identity. This is something the book Atomic Habits talks about, but it connects perfectly with discipline. If you see yourself as someone who always fails, never finishes anything, or is lazy by nature, then your actions will match that identity. But discipline becomes easier when your identity changes. For example, instead of saying, "I'm trying to read," you say, "I am a reader." Instead of saying, "I'm trying to study daily," you say, "I am the kind of person who studies every day." This shift is powerful because the brain loves to behave in a way that matches your identity.
And identity changes through action, not words. You can't just say I'm disciplined and magically become disciplined. But you can prove it to yourself with small actions. Every time you do the habit, even if it's tiny, you are giving your brain evidence. And the more evidence you collect, the more natural discipline becomes. This is why small wins are so important. People underestimate them because they think small wins don't matter. But small wins compound. They accumulate. They build belief. They tell your brain, look, I did it yesterday. I did it today. I can do it tomorrow. That's how identity forms, through repetition.
Let's talk about something you just said, because it's so important. Self-belief. So many people struggle with discipline because they don't believe they're capable of changing. If you grew up with people telling you you're lazy or unmotivated, you'll carry that belief into adulthood. But belief is like a wall. Once you break it, everything becomes possible. And the best way to break limiting beliefs is to set a small challenge and complete it consistently. Even something simple like drinking 1 extra cup of water each day, or stretching for 5 minutes. When you succeed, your brain learns, oh, I actually am capable. And from that moment, discipline becomes a little easier.
And I want to add something important. Discipline doesn't grow when you're doing well. It grows when you struggle. If someone is tired but still studies for 10 minutes, that's discipline. If someone doesn't feel like exercising but goes for a 15-minute walk, that's discipline. It's not about doing huge things. It's about doing something when you don't feel like doing anything. When you push through the low-energy moments, that's where discipline is built. That's where character develops.
Yes, I always say this. Discipline is built on the days when you don't feel motivated. Anyone can work hard on a good day. Anyone can be productive when they're excited. Real discipline shows up when you're tired, stressed, lazy, or unmotivated. That's why I believe the most powerful question a person can ask themselves every day is, what is the smallest action I can do right now to stay consistent? Not the biggest action, the smallest, something so small that your brain cannot resist it.
This is the key to avoiding burnout, too. People think discipline means being perfect or working at 100% every day. But real discipline has flexibility. Some days you're at 100%. Some days you're at 20%. But even on a 20% day, you don't drop to 0. You still show up. You still do something. This keeps the habit alive. And when the habit stays alive, discipline stays alive.
Now, let's talk about something deeper, the role of emotion in discipline. Most people don't realize how much emotions control their actions. If you feel frustrated, you procrastinate. If you feel stressed, you avoid tasks. If you feel bored, you quit. So, to build discipline, you need to learn how to manage your emotions. Not ignore them, manage them. A disciplined person doesn't wait to feel good, they act even when they feel bad.
And managing emotions doesn't mean becoming cold or robotic. It simply means recognizing your feelings without letting them control you. If you feel overwhelmed, you break the task into smaller pieces. If you feel bored, you add variety or change your environment. If you feel tired, you reduce intensity but still stay consistent. Discipline is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent.
That's true, and that emotional intelligence leads to something powerful, momentum. Once you start doing small tasks consistently, your brain begins to enjoy progress. Progress releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical, and suddenly, discipline becomes rewarding instead of painful. This is why people say the hardest part is starting. Once the momentum kicks in, the brain becomes your teammate instead of your enemy.
Yes, discipline becomes easier when your brain feels rewarded. That's why people should track their progress. Whether it's a habit calendar, a notebook, or a digital tracker, seeing your streak grow is motivating. It reminds you that your efforts are working. It reminds you that you're changing. It makes progress visible. And when progress is visible, discipline feels meaningful.
You know, something I've noticed is that people talk about discipline like it's this big, complicated thing, but a lot of it comes down to understanding your environment. Your environment shapes your behavior more than your motivation does. For example, if someone wants to study more, but their desk is messy, their phone is next to them, and noise is everywhere, then discipline becomes 10 times harder. But if you create a clean, simple workspace where everything you need is within reach, suddenly studying becomes much easier. It's not magic, it's design. Your environment can either support your goals or fight against them. And most people don't realize how much power they have to control it.
Exactly. And I think that's why some people feel like they have no discipline when actually their environment is designed to distract them. Like, imagine trying to stop eating junk food while keeping chips and chocolate in front of you. That's not discipline, that's torture. Or imagine someone trying to read more while their phone keeps buzzing. The problem isn't their self-control, it's their surroundings. When you design your environment correctly, discipline becomes almost automatic. And honestly, one of the best strategies is subtraction. Remove distractions instead of trying to resist them. Remove the temptation instead of fighting it every day. Your brain has limited energy. Don't waste it fighting battles you can avoid.
Absolutely. And one trick I always use is what I call the 1-minute environment reset. Before doing any task, I spend 1 minute cleaning or organizing the space, just 1 minute. I put away unnecessary things, tidy up a little, move my phone far away, and prepare the tools I need. It sounds super simple, but it changes the whole mood. Suddenly, the environment feels like a place for focus instead of chaos. And that 1-minute reset becomes a habit over time. It's like giving yourself a mental restart before doing something important.
That's such a helpful habit. And it connects perfectly with another idea I believe in strongly. Making good habits the easy choice and bad habits the hard choice. For example, if you want to play guitar more, put the guitar in a visible place instead of inside the closet. If you want to drink more water, keep a water bottle next to you at all times. If you want to study more, keep your study materials on your desk and remove the TV remote from your room. People think discipline only comes from willpower, but they forget that design is more powerful than willpower. When something is easy to access, you do it more. When something is hard to access, you do it less. This is human nature.
And speaking of human nature, another huge part of discipline is understanding energy cycles. Not everyone has the same natural rhythm. Some people have the most energy in the morning, some in the afternoon, and some at night. But most people try to force themselves into a routine that doesn't match their natural energy. For example, someone who is most focused at night tries to study at 6 a.m. and then wonders why they fail. Discipline is not about copying other people's routines. It's about discovering your own. If you align your tasks with your energy levels, everything becomes smoother. You stop fighting your biology and start working with it.
And that's why self-awareness is so important. You need to know when you feel most alive, most focused, most motivated. Track yourself for a week and see when your brain works best. Then place your most important tasks at those times. Discipline becomes easier when you understand yourself. And there's another thing people forget: rest. Proper rest is part of discipline. You cannot expect to be consistent if you're exhausted every day. Rest is not laziness. Rest is strategy. When you rest well, your focus, memory, and self-control all improve. And when those improve, discipline becomes easier and more natural.
You're so right. And rest doesn't only mean sleep. It also means taking short breaks, stepping away from screens, stretching your body, or even doing a 2-minute breathing exercise. These micro rests refresh your brain, and when your brain is refreshed, you make better decisions. People often push themselves until burnout and then blame themselves for losing discipline. But burnout is not a discipline problem, it's a recovery problem. Your body and mind need time to recharge. Discipline requires fuel, and rest is that fuel.
Yes, and connecting this to something deeper, discipline also depends on your emotional environment. If you live in a negative environment where people criticize you or discourage your goals, your discipline will collapse. But if you surround yourself with supportive people, even just one person who believes in you, suddenly everything becomes possible. We're social creatures. Our surroundings affect our discipline more than we admit. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do for your discipline is to change your social environment or set boundaries with negative people.
Definitely. And speaking of emotional health, we should talk about something people rarely discuss: the connection between discipline and self-respect. When you keep promises to yourself, even small ones, your self-respect grows. And when your self-respect grows, you naturally behave in a more disciplined way. But when you break promises to yourself again and again, your brain starts believing that your words mean nothing. And once that belief forms, discipline becomes extremely difficult. That's why it's better to set small promises and keep them, rather than set big promises and break them.
I agree completely. Discipline is not about achieving big things. It's about trusting yourself. When you trust yourself, your actions become stronger. Your decisions become firmer. Your habits become easier. And trust is built through consistency, not intensity. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be extreme. You only need to show up every day in some small way. That is enough. Over time, those small actions become your identity. And once your identity becomes, I am a disciplined person, everything else becomes simpler.
There's another thing I want to highlight: the role of friction. Increasing friction for bad habits and decreasing friction for good habits is one of the smartest discipline strategies. Want to scroll less? Put your phone far from your bed. Want to exercise more? Prepare your workout clothes the night before. Want to stop eating sugar? Don't buy it at all. It's not about being strong, it's about making the bad habit inconvenient. We naturally choose the path of least resistance, so build your environment in a way that the path of least resistance leads to good habits.
And that strategy works even for mental habits. For example, if someone tends to overthink, they can create friction by writing their thoughts out instead of letting them stay in their mind. Or if someone procrastinates because tasks feel big, they can create friction by breaking tasks into micro steps. When you reduce the mental friction, the brain becomes less resistant. Discipline becomes less painful. You're not forcing yourself, you're guiding yourself.
And I think all of this brings us to something essential: consistency over intensity. Discipline is not about doing one big thing once. It's about doing small things every day. It's like planting a seed. You don't need to pour a bucket of water on it once and then ignore it. You need to give it small amounts of water consistently. That's how growth works in nature, and that's how growth works in life. When people understand this, discipline becomes so much easier and more realistic. Something I really want to talk about is the relationship between discipline and emotions. People think discipline means ignoring your emotions or shutting them down, but that's not true. Discipline is not about pretending you don't feel tired or sad or stressed. It's about learning how to act even when your emotions are loud. And the truth is, our emotions are often temporary. We feel unmotivated for 15 minutes, not for the entire day. We feel stressed for an hour, not for the entire week. But people let those temporary feelings control their long-term actions. Discipline means recognizing the emotion, respecting it, but still moving forward gently and steadily. You don't need to fight your emotions. You need to guide them.
I love that explanation because so many people think discipline is this harsh thing. They think it means forcing themselves like a machine. But real discipline is actually soft and kind. It understands that you're human. It understands that you get tired and overwhelmed. Real discipline says, I know you don't feel your best right now, but let's just take one step. And that one step is enough to build momentum. If you're waiting for motivation to magically appear, you'll never start. But if you learn to take one small step, even when you don't feel motivated, you become unstoppable. That's the difference between people who succeed and people who give up too soon.
That connects to something I always say. Discipline grows when you reduce the emotional weight of starting. Starting is the hardest part of any task. Once you start, your brain begins to settle and things get easier. So I use something called the 10-minute rule. If I don't feel like doing a task, I tell myself, okay, just do it for 10 minutes. And honestly, 9 out of 10 times, I continue after the 10 minutes because the resistance disappears. The brain simply needs a gentle push. It doesn't need pressure. It needs permission to begin softly.
The 10-minute rule is so powerful because it respects reality. Nobody wants to clean a whole room, but anyone can clean for 10 minutes. Nobody wants to study a whole chapter, but anyone can study for 10 minutes. And once you're past the starting point, your brain begins to enjoy the focus. The funny thing is, we often spend more time thinking about the task than actually doing it. We mentally exaggerate how difficult it is, and that exaggeration kills discipline. But when you break that wall with a small step, everything becomes more manageable.
And we should also talk about the difference between discipline and punishment. A lot of people confuse the two. They think discipline means being strict, harsh, or cruel to yourself. But punishing yourself for failing actually reduces your discipline over time. When you fail and respond with self-hate or guilt, your brain becomes scared to try again. Failure becomes painful, so you avoid action. But if you fail and respond with understanding, if you say, it's okay, let's try again, your brain stays open. It trusts you. And when your brain trusts you, discipline becomes stronger and more consistent.
That's such an important point. People who succeed in building discipline treat failure like part of the process. They see failure as feedback, not as proof that they're weak or lazy. They learn from it instead of running from it. The most disciplined people in the world are not the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail and return quickly. They bounce back without destroying their confidence. Because at the end of the day, consistency is more important than perfection. You can fail 100 times, but if you come back one more time, you're still moving forward.
Exactly. And speaking of consistency, I want to bring up tracking habits because this is one of the easiest ways to strengthen discipline. When you track your habits, whether in a notebook, an app, or just a simple list, you create visual proof of your progress. That proof motivates you. When you see the streaks, when you see the check marks, your brain gets a reward. It wants to continue. It becomes a game. And humans love games. Even children feel motivated when they get gold stars or stickers. Adults are the same. We just use different stickers.
Yes, and when you track habits, you also learn about yourself. You see which days you're consistent and which days you're not. You notice patterns. Maybe you're more productive in the morning. Maybe you always skip habits on Sundays. Tracking helps you understand your weaknesses and your strengths. It turns discipline into something measurable, not just emotional. And it reminds you that you're not starting from zero every day. You're building something. You're growing something. You're shaping your future with every little check mark.
I think another thing people should know is that discipline becomes much stronger when you connect your habits to your identity. For example, if your identity is, I am someone who cares about my health, then exercising becomes natural. If your identity is, I'm a learner, then studying becomes normal. But if your identity is, I'm lazy, I'm not smart, I always fail, then your habits will follow that identity. People don't realize how much their self-talk shapes their actions. If you want to change your life, start by changing the story you tell yourself.
That's so true. Identity is like the engine behind discipline. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to wait until you succeed to change your identity. You can choose it today. You can say, I am someone who tries. I am someone who learns. I am someone who shows up. Even before you're perfect, you can choose the identity. And when you choose it again and again, your daily actions slowly begin to match it. It becomes a self-fulfilling process. The identity creates the habit, and the habit strengthens the identity.
I think something else people often forget about is choice architecture, the idea that you can design your choices. For example, if you want to use social media less, log out after every session. Make yourself type your password every time. That little friction will make you think twice before opening the app. Or if you want to study more, put your books in a place that's easy to reach. If you want to run in the morning, prepare your clothes at night. These little choices influence your actions without requiring much thought. Discipline becomes easier when you set yourself up correctly.
Yes, and these small environmental changes help you see that discipline doesn't require you to be strong all the time. You don't need to have endless willpower. You just need systems. Systems are what carry you on days when you're tired, sad, or unmotivated. Systems make success predictable. People who rely on motivation only fail on their bad days. People who build systems succeed even on bad days. And when you combine systems with small steps, with rest, with emotional awareness, you create a powerful engine for long-term discipline.
And maybe the most beautiful thing about discipline is that it slowly turns into freedom. At first, discipline feels like effort, but over time, it becomes automatic. It becomes natural. You stop fighting yourself. Your habits begin working for you instead of against you. And that's when life feels lighter. That's when your goals feel reachable. That's when your confidence grows. Discipline is the pathway to a life that feels more controlled, more meaningful, and less chaotic.
Lana, we've talked about discipline in so many ways. Starting small, building systems, managing emotions, removing friction, habits, environment. But there's still one thing people don't want to hear. Staying disciplined is not always fun. It's not always inspiring. Sometimes it feels boring or tiring or even pointless. And that's normal.
Exactly. People think discipline means you wake up every day feeling strong and motivated, like some hero in a movie. But real discipline is often quiet. It's you saying, I don't feel like it, but I'll do a little anyway. I learned that when I was trying to improve my writing skills. Some days I wrote 2 pages, some days half a page, some days 1 paragraph, but I didn't break the chain.
That's the key. Don't break the chain. You don't need big progress each day, just small, consistent movement. And something interesting happens when you stay consistent. You develop an identity. You start to see yourself as someone who can keep promises.
Yes, and identity is powerful. When you see yourself as a disciplined person, your actions follow. For example, if you say, I'm the type of person who takes care of my health, then even when you're tired, you choose the healthier option because it matches your identity. Identity-based habits make discipline easier because you're not forcing yourself. You're living your truth.
Let's talk about something deeper. People think discipline is about being hard on yourself, but real discipline is actually self-respect. It's you choosing what's good for your future self, not just what feels good right now.
Totally. People confuse punishment with discipline, but discipline doesn't mean hurting yourself or feeling guilty. It's more like a gentle parent saying, I know you're tired, but let's take one small step. It's kindness with structure.
And speaking of guilt, many people destroy their discipline because they make one mistake and feel like they failed. They miss one workout, one day of study, one chapter, and then they think, I ruined it. Why continue?
Right. That all or nothing mindset kills discipline. Instead of thinking you failed, think of it like this. You paused, and you can always unpause. I remember reading somewhere, never miss twice. Missing once is life. Missing twice becomes a pattern.
Another thing that destroys discipline is being too focused on results instead of the process. When someone studies for 1 week and doesn't see big improvement, they quit. They forget that discipline is not magic, it's investment. You plant seeds today, you harvest months later.
100%. When people don't see progress, they think nothing is happening. But with discipline, progress is often invisible at first. The change happens inside. Your patience grows, your focus improves, your resistance to distractions increases. These changes are real, even if nobody sees them yet.
Let's give people a powerful technique before we wrap up. The 2-hour rule. It's simple. Every day, choose one important task and give it at least 2 hours. It can be studying, exercising, building a skill, anything. You can divide the 2 hours into small chunks. The goal is to guarantee consistent, meaningful effort.
I love that because 2 hours is big enough to make progress, but small enough to handle daily. And the rule teaches you something important. Discipline is built in hours, not seconds. You need time inside the work, not just thinking about the work.
Another technique I use is the 3-task system. At the start of the day, write down your top 3 most important tasks. If you finish them, the day is a win, no matter what else happens. This protects you from feeling overwhelmed.
And it stops people from trying to do 20 things at once, which is the fastest way to burn out. I also use a trick. I do the hardest task when I have the most energy. For me, that's in the morning. If I leave it for later, it never gets done.
Let's talk about one final thing, accountability. Discipline becomes easier when someone else knows your goals. A friend, a coach, a community. When people cheer for you or expect something from you, it pushes you to keep going.
Yes, because humans are social. We don't want to disappoint others. Even telling one trusted friend, I'll train 3 times this week, makes you more likely to actually do it. And sometimes you don't need a person. You can use apps, journals, trackers, anything that feels like someone is watching your progress.
Before we end, I want to say this. Discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. You are not born disciplined or undisciplined. You learn it from practice. You improve it through repetition. Anyone can become disciplined with the right system.
And you don't need to be perfect to be disciplined. You just need to be consistent. Even small wins count. Even slow progress is progress. The most disciplined people in the world aren't the strongest. They're the ones who never stop trying.
So if you're listening to this and you feel lost or lazy or stuck, please remember, you can change. You can rebuild discipline. You can become the person you dream of being. Start small. Start today. One action, one promise.
We believe in you, seriously. You're capable of more than you think. Your future self is waiting for you. Stronger, smarter, more focused. Go meet them.
And that brings us to the end of today's talk. Thank you for spending your time with us. If you enjoyed this podcast, follow for more meaningful conversations. Stay disciplined, stay kind to yourself, and keep moving forward.
See you in the next episode. Take care.